Love is our true divine nature, and our heart serves as the intersection of the spiritual and physical, connecting our soul with our body as the conduit for anchoring our divinity onto the earth plane. Embodying our divinity is the key to our ascension and to manifesting our highest destiny in this life. The teachings of the heart are alchemy. Join spiritual mentor and channel Jennifer Spohr each week on a sacred journey to lift the veil to remembering your divinity and meet other beautiful souls who are living the path of the awakened heart. Hey everyone, I'm really excited to welcome today as a guest to the show Angela Blaha. She is the founder of Soulcation Retreats and is known as a soul seer and consciousness disruptor. She is also a best-selling author, inspiring readers and clients with her insights on professional growth and spiritual awakenings. Angela has built a thriving global business that supports conscious leaders who create a positive impact on the world, attract soul investing clients, and sell more products and services. Welcome, Angela. What a treat.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jennifer. This is going to be so much fun, I know.
It is. I know it's going to be a lot of fun too. And so for those who are listening, I was just discussing with Angela before we hit record for this conversation, how I had been connected with her for a long time, and then I saw her on Facebook, and all of a sudden felt guided to reach out to her to invite her onto the show to have a conversation. I always love those synchronicities, and there's obviously definitely something coming forward that wants to be shared today. So I'm super excited too. We're going to have a lot of fun today. Angela, I'd love for you to share with us really how you landed in the amazing work that you're doing. I know that's a big question because our journey is kind of an evolution, right?
Yes.
But yeah, I'd love for you to share more with us how you got to where you are today.
Well, it's probably a pretty common story. I grew up in a very dysfunctional home and was intuitive pretty much my whole entire life. When I was, when we graduated from high school, I was like, what the heck am I going to do with my rest of my life? I have no idea. So I went into psychology and counseling, and then pretty much stayed in that area for a really long time. And, things evolved and grew, and my intuition got stronger and stronger and stronger. And then I sort of jumped out of the counseling world and into the spiritual counseling, and where I mesh literally psychology, heart healing, hypnosis, all my tools. I just mesh them all together, and here we are. So many years later, and still working in personal growth, and particularly moving into and towards the empowerment of women, and what we are going to be bringing to the table in the future.
Absolutely. I'm really glad you brought that up. I'd love to know more about what's inspired you to put emphasis in moving in that direction.
It's actually been the crone energy, which I've never really been connected with before. But for some reason, since 2020, that kind of very powerful energy has just been really pulling me. And I was recently at a conference where we were asked to introduce ourselves and then what brought us to the conference. And every one of the women there, like there was probably 25 people in this one session, and every single one of those women were in some type of a crisis moment. Like either they were separating from their partners, or some of them were retiring and were like, I don't even know what to do with my life. But that was really the overall theme: is who am I and why am I here? And that really just dug deep into me, and it almost brought me to tears when I was in that session. I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many women here. And are we all in this space of not knowing who we are and, what we are bringing to the world? And so So I've been on this mission ever since to like really be empowering women to know who they are and to like bring your gifts, like we both have, and we both practice our own spiritual gifts and abilities, and really bringing those components to the world, because I feel like the world's in a crisis, and how are we going to get out of the crisis? Well, I feel like we're going to be using that feminine kind of energy, which is very wise and very strong and very confident, and very intuitive. Like I feel that intuition is going to be the one that leads us out of where we've been.
Well, yeah, I absolutely agree. I believe that as well. I mean, our intuition is an extension of our soul and our soul's guidance, and our soul is really like the core of the essence of who we are, right? And that's where our power as divine creators and our growth and where all of our expansion comes from. And it's so interesting, and this is a topic I can talk about for days, because for tens of thousands of years, or however long it's been, we've essentially, many of us have been saturated with this very strong inverted programming around pretty much living opposite to that, right? It's like,
right.
even in some circles where I've seen and I've heard others speak about feminine leadership, there's even sometimes in some contexts kind of like almost like, I'm trying to think of how to put into English words. It's like an energy of, that we've been living kind of in too much of a masculine way, and now it's time to bring forward more of the feminine aspects of ourselves. And that is true, but it's really also more about re-establishing that balance, right? Because there is a masculine side, but it's not the masculine that we've been programmed to believe all of this time. It's the sacred masculine. It's the sacred masculine that operates essentially in devotion to the feminine.
Right. I totally agree. I think that one of the aspects I feel like that we've sort of brushed to the side is the wisdom of the intuition, and the wisdom of, like the crone energy is 100% about being the god of the gods, and the master, the self-actualizing being, the really living the utmost that you possibly can in a life. And I think we've not done that for a really long time, and it could be just because of the imbalances of the masculine and the feminine, or even the masculine feminine and the divine masculine and divine feminine, like having that disconnect from what do those mean, and who are we, and how do we actually become that or live that out in a lifetime. But I feel like that is part of it's the wisdom that we don't even honor it any longer.
Yeah. I'd love for you to share more about the crone energy and the difference between maybe that energy and being, I don't want to say like in a space kind of earlier than when you get to that point on your ascension journey, but because a lot of the people that I know that listen to this podcast are people who are already on a spiritual path, right? But they might not be at that point. So what would be kind of some of the differentiators?
Well, so the crone energy has, I believe, in the past has gotten a really bad reputation for being, the old hag, or the old woman who doesn't know anything and all she is preparing to die. And it was, in the past, it's been, if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond, then you connect with that energy. But I think that we've been connecting, if you're on a spiritual path, I think you've been connecting with that energy way more than you. I think that the crone is the one who activates all of the awakenings, because she's so strong, and she's so a lot of mythical belief systems relate the crone to the god, or the source of God kind of energies. And I think I think they're all just one and the same. We just use different names for them.
Gotcha. Yeah. Who or what are some of the energies that you would recommend someone working with to deepen more into that?
Well, I think it's right. Yeah.
That energy.
I know, right? It's all the same. It's all the same. But I think
Yeah.
intuitively, I think the more that you can go inward, and connect with your highest self, I think that all those energies sort of pull you in one direction or another along your path. You know, it's like, where's your focus going to be? And that might differentiate you from everyone else, which, you know, has been my life story, is being different from everyone else, because I do like sort of get, they're not distractions. I do like move into these sort of pathways where you go to the nth degree of experiencing it, you know, like the crone, for example. Like, so I think I've been following that kind of energy for a really, probably since my early 20s. Because I went into psychology, I know what self-actualization is. It's all about, you know, becoming self-master of who you are. And it's really bringing out that energy and gifting it to the world. Like, we don't gift our natural self to the world. We hide ourselves. We stay behind our shadow. We, you know, like, we use all the excuses, but we actually don't open ourselves up to receiving and to gifting that energy into the world. It's very empowered.
Yeah, I feel like what you just said there is part of the journey of mastery. It's part of ascension too, right? It's that the outward part of being able to live expressed in your truth and who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
You know, Carl Jung calls it the numinous, which is a part of the self-actualization. Abraham Maslow has the hierarchy of needs, you know, but self-actualization is at the top. I think that it's inverted. I think that we start self-actualized and then we become conditioned, and it lowers our self-actualization, or it hides it sort of masks it. But, you know, when we get to a certain age, it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to pretend to not be somebody any longer. You know, there's something about the depth of who we are that sort of gets sparked. And it's probably the awakening, you know, when you have a spiritual awakening, like that spark becomes a fire, and you cannot put it out. Like, you can't put that fire out.
Yeah, that's so true. Once you wake up, you definitely can't go back to sleep. And
No.
as I was listening to you speak about, you know, kind of something, you didn't say mask really, but like at the point that you have that awakening and the mask or the veil kind of lifts, you know. I don't know about your journey, but for mine personally, it becomes quite exhausting to live in an inverted way, you know, even though, and a lot of people don't realize how deeply draining it can be, you know, because you've lived in this society, right, that has taught you a lot of what you've been taught is an inversion of the truth to begin with. And so you've been living your whole life this way. Yes. Right. And after a while, it becomes quite draining. And I think when we have those awakenings, it's like that's the point. We reach a tipping point of where we just we literally don't have the energy to do it anymore. And then I think it's also in many ways like a form of surrender, right? When you experience that awakening.
Yeah, you stop aligning with the ego and the falseness of the ego, and you actually say, okay, well, you know, I can't sustain this energy any longer, and I can't sustain, you know, that way of living. And you just give up, and you're just like, okay, I'm done with that. I need to like burn myself down and be like the phoenix rising and come out of the ashes. And this is who I really am. You know, for some of us that happens real early in life, and for others it happens along the way. Yeah,
so true. I don't know if you've noticed this. It seems like some of the younger generations human age wise, are experiencing these awakenings earlier
Yes. And some of them are coming in and never have
already.
to
Yeah.
experience an awakening. That,
Yes.
yeah, they're the lucky ones in my in
Yeah.
my consideration. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I know for me, I knew my whole life I was very sensitive, right? But I didn't pay much attention to it, or didn't prioritize it, I would say. I definitely paid attention to it and was drawn to it, but didn't hone it or anything. And then reached kind of that big breaking point not until I was about 40. And I feel
When,
like it's part of the human experience, but a lot of times we end up having to experience some type of hardship, or trauma or something to wake us up.
yeah, that's what's been programmed. See, that I believe that that's part of the programming is
Yeah.
to stifle energy so that you don't know and understand your power.
Yeah.
And then we're calling the awakening is when you say, okay, well, I'm done not being empowered. I'm done with, that whole energy of being stifled. And you just sort of say, okay, well, what's really the truth here? And you become a seeker. That's what my journey was anyway. I've been
Yeah.
seeking like my whole entire life, like how can I improve? How can I make myself and my family and the world better? And it's like a snowball effect. Like it's just a continuous process, literally.
Yeah. So interesting as I'm listening to you, what I'm feeling guided to bring forward is that, similar to you, right? I believe in taking a proactive approach, right, to your
Mhm.
ascension and your growth. Like that's just, it's really more of a state of being and a way of living. What happens so often is that, like you said, it's programming. Unless it's something that's in our face that needs attention from a reactionary standpoint, we don't necessarily pay attention to it. And it's like, why not instead, I mean, I'm using this as an example, but wake up every day to say, like, how can I live to my full potential today? Even living in that question
Yes.
would
It
be
changes you.
a game changer. Yes.
Yeah.
So much. So I'm loving this conversation, especially this latest segment of our conversation, because it's amazing at how many people, even in circles in the personal development industry and even in spiritual communities, I'd say that in quotes, but where people will say, oh, it's just human nature to experience that duality. It's like, yes, yes, to an extent, right?
But what do you do with the
But you have the
duality?
power
Exactly.
to change that.
Yeah.
There's still an element out there of, well, there are certain things that's just the way that it is, and no, I don't agree with that at all.
No, I don't either. No, I don't even believe. Well, I think that that's where the whole change comes in is when you start asking yourself that kind of a question where, how can I improve myself today? Or, how can what can I do to, make myself more expanded even, or make myself more aware of who I am and the things that I say and the things that I do. And when we're asking ourselves those kinds of questions, like there there's fear in those kinds of questions,
Mhm.
right? And I
Yeah.
think that when we're pulled to energies like the crone, that kind of really powerful energy that says don't be afraid, um, but yet we've been programmed not to feel and understand our own success, or to be so empowered and so enlightened that we don't believe in the programming, because that's where the duality is the programming versus your own intuitive natural self. And
Mhm.
when we wake up to that, it's like, what have I been doing all of these years?
Mhm.
And then it's like, and then the fear comes in and it's like, wait, I don't even know how to be powerful. I don't even know how to understand my own intuition. I don't even know how to follow my intuition. And I think that that's where we sort of stop and we get stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. Something totally funny just to insert into our conversation as you were saying all of that. I was thinking, oh, thanks Facebook, because they have those memories that pop up or whatever.
Mm.
And if you've ever
Yeah.
looked at something that you said like 10 years ago or 5 years ago, or hell, even a couple of years ago, you're like, oh yeah, thanks for that reminder.
Yeah, that's who I used to be.
Yeah, I'm so not that person anymore. Or, I mean, you even are just kind of like, wow, I can't believe I said that. Back
Yeah.
then. It's just funny. I mean, I think you have to maintain a sense of humor in this journey too. Like, that's the other thing. Um, it is serious, but it's so important to maintain a balance when you're on this journey of seeking, right?
Mm-hmm.
To create that space for yourself to be playful and to be intentionally in a place of joy, because
Yeah.
it can be easy in the human experience to kind of fall in sometimes into that very serious kind of focused lane around um ascension.
Yeah, it's real easy to fall into the negative duality portion of
Yeah.
the human experience, because our world is very negative. It's based in negativity, which is again part of the separation component of you know having it all. That's that's part of having it all, is you have positives and negatives, and how do you choose? There's so much power in making a decision about who you are and who you are becoming in the world. And I think that that's something that we're never really taught. We're never taught to make decisions about who we are and who we want to be in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, to all of this.
Yeah.
uh, what would be, well, actually, first I want to ask, I'd love for you to share more with us about how you work with clients. Who do you typically attract, I should say?
I typically attract anyone who basically has sort of awakened, but they know that they're not fully awakened, and they are really looking for direction as to what is intuition, what's ego, that kind of
Okay.
thing. Really, I have a retreat coming up, and it's called the Wise Woman Retreat, and it's all about embodying that very powerful feminine, divine feminine kind of energy. And what do you do with it in the world? Like, it doesn't matter where you are in your journey. It's like, are you bringing that to the table? Because the world needs that more now than anything, I think. And then support, like I create very dynamic, I want to say, support systems within groups, um, where I think that that's one of the components that's really missing. And my journey has probably been a lone wolf kind of journey, where I basically have created all the energy for myself and for my family and for my community and my work. But I've never really, probably up until about 5 years ago, I've never really embodied the support of others. And I think that that is becoming more and more important as we move forward, because we are going to be going through some pretty drastic shifts, I feel, moving forward, especially with the new earth components coming in, and our shifting consciousness. And it's like we're going to be in areas of I don't know what this is, because we've never really experienced it as a human being, so we don't really have cell memory to bring forward to help guide us through that. And I think that those support systems are going to be even more important than they ever have been in the past. So that's typically.
Yeah, on that note, I was going to ask, well, I'm forming my question. So on that note, even people who would already consider themselves to be awakened, right, are moving through an initiatory phase
Mhm.
right now of being called to deeper expression, right, of the truth of who they are. So whether it's someone who's initially awakening or someone who's been, and this is not their first rodeo, so to speak, so what would be your top one or two tips in terms of advice for people going through this initiatory phase to actually step forward into that next level?
Yeah, the first thing is support. Like we all need support right now. And, this hasn't been my first rodeo. I have tons of memory about past lives and my role here and those kinds of things. And I still need support, So that's my number
definitely.
one. That's the number one thing. Yeah. The second thing is the embodiment of who you are, that bringing in those soul aspects of, that are very powerful and very, they're forward moving. And I don't think that we're very rehearsed in forward movement. But that connection, that deep divine connection, with your highest self or with your God self or whatever, the universe, whatever words you want to use, like that is probably moving forward. That's one of the deepest, most profound things that you can do for yourself, is to gather that connection. And it's not necessarily, I think that connection has changed over time. Like, I used to teach meditation and, like really quieting your mind so that you can literally connect with that. But I think it's changed now. I think that there's a deeper connection that we're being asked to tap into. And how do we get there? How do we get to that spot? And then the third thing is the self-actualization component, that self-mastery, you becoming exactly what you think, know, and, believe to be true about you. Like that's the third component, is being that person.
Thank you so much for sharing that wisdom. In closing, Angela, what else are you feeling guided to bring forward?
It's that authentic self is really, I feel, is really being asked to be seen and heard. Maybe not by the world right away, but especially by yourself and through yourself. And, like, who are you authentically? Without any programming, without any belief systems, without anything, who are you? And I think that's a deep, deep connection. But it makes life change for you. And I think that that's the one thing, like that's where we're being drawn. And I think that's going to play into our future selves moving forward, especially in the next 6 months to a year. So
that's such a fantastic question. I mean, that in of itself is another game changer, right? Just let yourself marinate in that question every day.
Yeah.
Because going back to that programming we talked about earlier, we are so programmed to tie our identities of who we are to our external circumstances or our role in our jobs or even our business, right? It's so
or
important.
even our internal self.
Yes, it's such a fantastic question. Thank you for that. Angela, for those listening who are feeling guided to reach out, where is the best place for them to go to find you?
Well, you can find me on all the social media platforms. And I have a website, www.angelablaha.com. So you can find all my stuff there too. So, yeah.
And we will have those links in the show notes for those who are listening as well. Angela, thank you so much. I mean, this conversation, it feels like it's only been 2 minutes.
I know.
It's like we're in our own little vortex. I love it.
For sure.
Thanks so much, Angela. Appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for doing this for the world, Jennifer.
Oh, you're welcome. It is really my absolute pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Path of the Awakened Heart. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or pathoftheawakenedheart.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about living with an awakened heart and navigating your ascension journey, visit me at jenniferspore.com.